In a dark world, remember to be the light. Welcome to our live broadcast. Black Swan Revelations presents Rev 5. Here is your host, the Black Swan himself, Shane.
You know, I'm going to put in that animation, I think, Gary, Rev 4 or 5 or 6. We'll see. We're expecting one more guest. Oh, look at this. Bam! Boom! Thunder, lightning. How amazing is that?
How's that, guys? How you all doing?
Perfect timing. Welcome. We were just about to talk about you, Rick. So welcome to the club.
My private jet started acting up. I finally got the engines going. We know
Nice.
one jet that's never going to fail us, and that's Flight 777, folks.
Oh, I love it. Love it. That's awesome. Yeah. Rick is on fire. Bob, how you doing today?
Bob is doing great. Thank you. Really excited. Really excited to see what we have to talk about today. I mean, there's plenty to talk about, and interesting things happening this week as far as high watch for the Rapture. Just really excited. Amen.
Awesome. Brother Gary, what's going on?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, sir. And as always, it's an awesome thing to be with you. And I guess it's men's night, so
Right.
I don't know what that means, but it's just us fellas. We're a few disciples short of 12, but hey, bring it on.
That's right. Pete Garcia, welcome to the club tonight. How's it going tonight?
Can't hear him.
We're doing. I could do sign language. Hang on one second. I am okay. That's my best sign language. I'm probably going to get banned now for signaling. Like I did some kind of a weird signal on YouTube, and they're like, "Hey, whoa, banned for life." Okay, well, we'll jump in. We don't hear you yet, Pete. I don't know if you could hear me. Just nod your head, yes and no at the same time, and thumbs up. Okay, perfect. All right, he can hear us. Okay, so while you're figuring that out, I don't know if you want to reboot your computer or try that, see if that works or whatever, because it was better without your headphones. But you said it was a little
can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Hey, yes.
There he is.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
how are you doing besides the technical stuff?
Oh man, it's just busy. It's really busy. So school starts this week, and just doing 1,000 different things, trying to cram in the last little bit of summer before school starts. So we got a house full of kids here today with wife and them. We're all at the outside. So hopefully I'll get about an hour of quiet time in here.
Yeah, exactly. That's all right. That's perfect. If you have to go at any time, if some little kidlets grab you and yank you off the screen, we will understand. I get it. Make them a priority. But yeah, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about, is the rapture imminent? As in, could Jesus Christ come tonight, tomorrow, a week from now, a year from now, or for that matter, could we also die tomorrow or the next day or a week from now or a year from now? These are the two problems that we don't really know. We don't know when Jesus Christ is coming to get his body. Could be any second. And we don't know when we're done here on earth. So let us begin. We'll go around the table a little bit. So I'll start. I'll share a couple of scripture verses that give us an impression that Jesus Christ could come at any time. Look at this. Romans 13, verse 11. And that knowing the time, that now is the high time to wake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Now, this may not specifically say that Jesus Christ is coming, but at the same time, man, we are closer today than we were yesterday. That's just a fact. And if you were to look at the calendar and look at everything that's going on in the last couple of years compared to 10 years ago, there's lots of stuff. And I just finished watching a little bit of the closing ceremonies. And I'll tell you, there wasn't much to see at the end. Just like the Antichrist, or the angel of light, I should say, the devil himself, all lit up in gold, representing the angel of light, with a bunch of people that look like white human skin all over them, lifting up 5 golden rings. So there's really nothing to see here. That was just, I watched it for 1 minute. I'm like, okay, wait for it. Let's see what's going to happen. Is this going to be kind of weird? Oh, yeah, here comes a golden angel showing up and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So, anyways, I had to record it on my phone because they took down the opening Olympics so nobody can watch it. They offended the church, they offended Christians, and then they took it away. So this time I recorded a bit of it. I should have probably recorded more of it. But really, at the end of the day, how much slime do you have to record before you know it's slime? Like, how much do you have to record? So, but, I love the Olympics. I love all the athletes and all the stuff that they're doing. It's just like when you have some kind of a weird show, I just feel for the athletes. Like, they're working so hard to do all this stuff. And then you get committees that are like, hey, I think it seems reasonable to blaspheme Jesus Christ in front of hundreds of millions of people. What do you guys think? All in favor? Aye. It's like, really? 4 years of training and you just insulted my God before I'm minutes away from parading in front of my nation? That's how you treat us after all this time? Anyways, what are your thoughts about the imminency?
Just lost you.
Yeah,
I
you
think
went
you
silent.
adopted the sign
silent
language
there.
thing since you
Yeah,
brought
the
it
sign
up
language.
now.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the imminency? And then we're going to hear you after that.
Yes.
What'd you say, Shane?
Yeah, there we go. I'm back. So Gary, Pete, Bob, and then Rick.
I just, no matter what time frame, generation you are, ever since Jesus departed, everybody's always thought, is he coming back now? Is he coming back now? Hundreds of years after the resurrection, is he coming back now? I mean, it's kind of been the dangling carrot, if you will, every generation since Jesus went back into heaven, that there's always been that carrot dangling that he could come back at any time. But the only difference between any other time in history and the time of history we live in now is that we have seen biblical prophecies take place either within our lifetimes, the people on the panel, or our grandparents might have even seen, with Israel becoming a nation and being recognized, and then all the whole deal of everything that's come to pass. And every day, I mean, it's funny how the Bible says even the rocks will cry out. And it's funny, if you're an archaeologist and you're digging, they're always digging and finding something that proves the Bible every time they put something in the ground and dig. And I think that's just awesome that we live in a time where they find more and more of the lost cities, and they're finding them in our generation. And it's like more and more. You can't even turn on the news without, read Revelation and then go turn on the news. And it's like, my goodness, if we are not living in the time of his soon appearing, when? Because this is more than just a dangling carrot to keep me on the straight and narrow. This is showing me in the Bible. And then you flip on the news and it's like, man, Israel's surrounded and this, that, and the other. I know that I live in a time that he could come before I even finish my sentence.
For sure. Truth. You're just laying the smacketh down. Thank you for that, Gary. Pete.
Amen. All right. I think I'm muted again. Can you hear me?
No, we can hear
No,
you.
We can
now,
no, we can hear you.
now you're good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What?
Yeah.
You got it? Okay.
You can't. Yeah, you can't hear yourself,
I feel-
but we can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like we live in this kind of tension right now in these last days, where on one hand of the extremes you have, just date setting frenzy, because so many things are happening. We want to apply that to our time right now. And so I've seen this, I haven't been in the prophecy world that long, really since about 2007. But since I have, I've seen it come at least a half dozen times or maybe more, and people get all hyped up and ready for something. But on the other end of the spectrum is the other extreme, which is apathy, and that comes about by this normalcy bias that we apply to our lives, thinking that tomorrow is going to be exactly like today is. And so I feel like right now we need to have that healthy balance of being expecting and expectant of the Lord's anytime return, but at the same time, being busy about the Lord's work and whatever He has us doing. And so I do think there's some bookends for us that we can look at that maybe marks our generation off differently than any other. And Gary had mentioned the grandparents' generation. Certainly, they would have seen Israel become a nation again. They would have seen everything that led to that. So I think at our end, the bookend are those technologies that exceed the book of Revelation. They exceed the things spoken of in the book of Revelation. So Revelation does mention technological capabilities. It doesn't mention specific technologies, but it talks about the capabilities, like the two witnesses being seen from around the world, or the mark of the beast. Well, we've got guys now here, Elon Musk and others, that are wanting to put people on other planets by the end of the decade. You've got the singularity getting close to being, coming about, where we give some type of life to artificial intelligence. You have the post-human movement, where we're looking at moving people beyond human. And once you begin to alter people to that point, I don't feel like they're capable of salvation anymore, because I feel like that's one of the things the mark does to somebody, is it changes the nature of who they are. So I feel like we're at that tipping point, I guess, right now. And I feel far more expectant today than I ever did in, since 2007.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pete. I agree with all that. Like, it feels like you couldn't do this when, I don't want to date myself, but back in the Stone Age, you didn't have technology like you did today. Like, you couldn't show everybody all at once, all across the planet. You couldn't do that. Now you can. You can do that today. So that should tell you that that's almost like a stopwatch or a clock in itself to have that ability to happen. So, Bob, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are the things essentially that are right in front of us right now that we're watching in real time. I like watching that stuff. Speak to my friend John Boucher. I watched him for that great day, and we text each other a lot during the day. And it gets to a point where I'm looking for three things. One, I'm looking for something that's going to trigger the rapture. Two, I'm looking for a grid down. Or three, I'm looking for nuclear war. All right. Those are three things I'm looking for right now, because all three of them deal with our departure immediately, one way or another. All right. So anything else outside of that really does not get me going. Okay, I've been watching this Cold War crap going on forever. If you've been watching, I've been watching since 2004. Okay, it's still the same since it was in 2004. All right, I started watching back when Assad and all these guys, and before Obama came in and all stuff like that. So it's like a lot of the same rhetoric. The only difference is now we have more equipment involved. We have equipment positioned involved. Okay, we got some alliances for Iran, Russia, and Turkey. Some other countries are involved. All right, the rhetoric is still there, same rhetoric. So rhetoric doesn't impress me, because if you've been watching the news, I've been watching them, and they're going, "Oh, there's going to be this huge attack 2 days, 3 days from now. Oh, we'll put up a warning. It's going to be any day," and that was like a month ago. So yeah, I'm not impressed when they start putting stuff in the news. This going to happen. That's going to happen. All right. I like deadlines, Shane, and we got a deadline coming up. It's called November 5th. All right, and that's when the selection is going to take place. That should give us a gauge of what to expect going into December, January. I like that. That's solid to me. And right now, what they're doing is they are doing AI-generated crowds for Kamala Harris. You guys have seen all that stuff now. They're busting them out because of it. And so they're trying to push her right to the top, even though she was a pile of garbage a month ago and no one could stand her. The same people are saying that she's the greatest thing on earth. So we're not buying into their lies for any of that crap. So you have that whole thing ramping up. And then one more thing I wanted to point out too is that the World Health, oh, I guess I want to say that because it's a trigger word. Let's just say that people who know best for our health around the world, they said right now they're calling for all the snake bite manufacturers to come together because they got this big, huge thing coming, and it deals with the tweet little birdie thing, and also something to do with the hairy monkey, all right, and stuff like that. So they got that going. They're like, it's going to be huge. We need all you guys to come together and put the safest, most effective thing together within 3 weeks or 3 months or 6 months. Look, it takes 10 to 15 years to develop this stuff. You can't do it in 6 months. And here's my thing. I don't think that there's going to be an issue with any of that stuff because whatever they're so scared of, the boogeyman virus, whatever they're so scared of, it's already in the bodies of those who took that snake bite 3 to 4 years ago. It's just going to manifest at the end of this year, beginning of next year. And they know the timing of it. They know when that incubator is going to be finished. And when it does, they're going to be like, ooh, the monkey thing, the bird thing. Ooh, go get another one. Help. Lockdown. Stay in your homes. Okay. So they're doing this and they're setting it up for next year. And there's two celestial signs. And I'll end with this. There are two celestial signs that I believe mark the beginning of it. One is they're doing the summit on October 2nd, Feast of Trumpets, and it's marked by a solar eclipse, which is a warning to the nations of what they're going to be doing that day that's coming in 2025. And do you want to guess when I believe they're going to roll out the whole lockdowns for this thing? You want to guess? I'll tell you where I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be in March, once again, just like in 2020, because there is a blood moon that falls on Purim in March. Guess what day? March 13th. Okay, it falls on the 13th of March. All right. I think that will be the time when they roll this whole thing up because you know why? They rolled the whole thing out last time in March, remember? That's when it got rolled out. That's when the lockdowns began. Remember 2 weeks for the curve? Remember Trump said that 2 weeks, and by Easter Sunday, the whole thing's going to be gone. Remember that? Mm-hmm. So that is what we're on the brink of. Look, they're not going to stop doing this stuff. All right, they're going to keep coming and coming and coming. This is why the rapture resurrection is right at our doorstep. I believe this year. This year is right at our doorstep. I haven't even mentioned the nuclear wars and all that stuff yet. Right. Okay, I'm sure Brother Rick has something to say about that.
Yep, for sure. That's a nice segue. Brother Rick, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
You know, the familiar sight of the mask diaper over our face will be coming back, I believe. They're getting ready to do it anytime now. They're making a big thing out of this new virus out there. The big hairy monkey that's out there waiting to scare us like a boogeyman. And then, you know, we're going to start seeing that all over everybody masking up. And it's kind of familiar around that time of year again. It's time again. It's time to wear your mask, your face diaper, right around elections again. Yeah. So it's a familiar sight that we're going to see again around elections. And, excuse me, you know, the imminency of the rapture, I look at the rapture every day that it's imminent, okay? But right now, I am watching the Iranian situation where we're about to go to, we might get involved, I think we're already involved, where we're going to go to war with Iran, or it's going to be a preemptive strike on Iran, or it's going to be vice versa, where Iran goes into Israel or basically bombs Jerusalem. And you know, when you mess with Jerusalem, you're messing with God. You're getting in God's face, by the way, if you do that. And once again, God is holding their hand back, preventing this war from going on. It was supposed to happen a week ago, folks. Okay? It is my belief that God is holding their hand back, because if this was just another war, then it would have happened a week ago or so. It would have happened. It wouldn't trigger the rapture. But for some reason, this war is weird. It's been put on hold. And I think God has something to do with it. He's keeping it on hold because this might be the big one, folks, because Russia is getting involved, okay? If they get involved, and they're already bringing their radar jammers and their equipment, their planes, excuse me, my voice, and they are, this time it's different. And it's going to make October 7th look like a day in a picnic, folks, okay? So, think about it, folks. He's holding this war back. He's delaying it for a reason. Because this is probably the one that we've been talking about for years. Over 10 years, we've been waiting for this. That this probably is the one that's going to trigger the rapture of the church. So you want to talk about imminency. When this war kicks off, and I think it will, if it's coming this year, then it's going to happen over the next 5 months. Okay? October, sorry guys, October's coming up. Okay, and the lockdowns are coming. If they do happen, just like in 2020 of March, they occurred about 6 months before Election Day. Okay, once again, if they're going to do the lockdowns and all this stuff they did last time, it will occur. It's a little late now. They still got a couple months they can still pull it off. All of a sudden, we're seeing this big virus scare. They're bringing it in quickly in time for the elections. Now, Kamala Harris is already winning by a landslide. They're already saying she's winning, which I don't believe. The polls are probably rigged or whatever. They have to be. You know, I don't want to say something to get your channel striked out, Shane. I'm trying to be very careful. There's a fine line what you can say on here. Other than that, folks, I just believe that we are very, very close. I don't see this happening 5 years out or 10 years out. This year, it looks really good for this year. So...
Thank you for that, Rick. Yeah, it's interesting when we talk about freedom of speech. It is crystal clear that for some channels, it is not freedom of speech. Like, they are watching, they're banning, they're deleting subscribers, they're doing everything that they can to minimize what we're talking about here, and that should tell you something alone. That doesn't happen with other channels where they're talking about the Hamas and all their terrorists. Like, you can actually shut down Toronto, like one of the main streets in Ontario, in Canada, and we have a whole bunch of Muslims worshiping and bowing down and blocking the streets so that the police have to go in there, but they're not touching them, they're not doing anything. But if you have protesters that are saying, hey, you know what, like with the truckers and everything, all of a sudden they're being removed, and we have the Emergencies Act kick in and all this kind of stuff. But for what's going on in Ontario right now, it's like, no, there's nothing to see here. This is normal to block our main intersection and then have people bowing to the west or the east or whatever direction, and nobody's saying anything, and they all have masks and they're waving flags and everything. And it's like, okay, is that where we come to right now, that we can't say anything, and then all of a sudden other groups, other organizations could have full on, they can do whatever they want whenever they want, and it's actually getting crazy now. It's getting silly. So one thing I wanted to do is just share a scripture verse here, and then we'll go around the table again. So 2 Peter 3 and 4, and I think Pete Garcia probably has this whole epistle memorized, but verse 3, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in reverse order. Rick, Bob, Pete, and then Gary. Go ahead, Rick. What do you think about scoffers?
Run that question by me again so I can answer it right.
For sure.
Just
so
the question in general.
Yeah. So basically, does it feel like there are more scoffers today about the Lord's return than there were, even say, like 6 months ago, a year ago?
Yeah, I believe that a lot of people are saying, where is this promising? Where is he? There's a lot of people that are going after their own lust. They're looking, they're into the world, and they're into everything in the pleasures of the world. And the world looks real attractive to a non-believer. We know that. Even to a believer, it does. Even believers get discouraged because it hasn't come back yet. I get a little discouraged myself. Like if he doesn't come this year, we've talked about it. I mean, it's kind of discouraging, and I get it. Especially when you're a watchman on the wall, you see it more than an average Christian does. Okay, and you really yearn for it every single day, and for it to not to happen. Now, I believe God wouldn't go through all the trouble showing us these signs like breakneck speed that it's been going this year just to not come for another couple years. But the people out there that say, oh, he's not coming, people have been saying this for 30 to 100 years. And, the part that they fail to realize is that, I can't say this word, ignorant, is that how you pronounce it? My English is bad sometimes. They're ignorant of the word, okay? And it's because they fail to look at that part of the Bible that talks about the end times, that the birth pains, and then all the things that are going on, that you read between the lines, you see the things that we see, we know that it's close. Now, they're not seeing that. It's like highlighted, grayed out for them. And they just say, well, generally this stuff's been going. We've always had earthquakes, we've always had wars. Okay, what's the difference, And these guys over here, these guys think it's coming like us. They're probably saying, well, these guys think it's coming quickly. They're magnifying it like crazy, saying, hey, it's going to come today. And it didn't come last year. It didn't come the year before. They're setting all these dates and charts and everything. And they start to scoff after that. Even the believers. Now, the non-believers don't believe it at all. They think we're quacko, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs or whatever. Folks, that's the scoffing world that we live in today. We're laughed at behind our backs because we're saying he's coming. Oh, they're going to disappear. Disappear from what? That's where they're going to be fooled after the rapture, by the way. Folks, that is the deception that's coming on. Satan wants you to believe that. He wants you to be discouraged. He wants you to think that the rapture's never coming, or not at all. You're going to go through the tribulation. I know one YouTuber that me and Bob convinced finally that it comes first, doesn't come in the middle or the after. Even like that, he can make a believer believe that and just lose all the hope and destroy the hope of the rapture coming. It's an imminent event, okay? We are not to be impatient with this event. God is a patient God. We should be patient too, So that's my take on that.
I appreciate that. Bob,
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are simply that, I think about all the Christians. How many Christians are on the planet right now? Was it 1.3 billion, maybe 1.4 now, somewhere in that neighborhood? And half of them are not really true Christians because, Catholics, and I came from 28 years of Catholicism, and I'm sure that I wasn't even born again until after I truly understood the gospel, which was not when I was in Catholicism. So if you do the numbers, we are down to like 200 million people on the planet. And then out of the 200 million people that believe once saved, always saved, okay? And then you go from there to all the ones who are watchmen for the end times, watch for the rapture, the book of Revelation, which most Christians are afraid of. Yeah. So now the number drops down to about 7% or something like that. So now we're probably in the neighborhood of somewhere in the area of 10 to 15 million believers now who are watching, all right, for the Lord's return. And I think that's pretty generous to even say that, because if you get on YouTube, how many people that you see on these channels? Okay, I see like mine has 140,000, and then other channels, bigger channels, I see somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000, 600,000, and that's globally on YouTube. Okay, so if you kind of do the math, with probably about 2 or 3 million people in the end are really watching for the rapture. Now, I say that because there's only a small, tiny group of us watching that are being mocked and scoffed at, but we're the ones that are sounding the alarm. Okay, and those of us who are on YouTube, which essentially I think the Lord has given us the biggest trumpet on YouTube. All right, we're the loudest. Let's face it, we're the loudest here, so we're going to be scoffed at and stuff like that. All right.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of us looking, but the mockers and scoffers are here. All right. Peter was right. In the last days, there will be mockers and scoffers. He was right. Okay. We are in the last days now. All right. So there's no surprise out there, and you can't blame them. Okay, because we've been barking up this tree for, I mean, because I've been doing it since 2004, and these people have no concept of time, really, where God, everything's all at once, essentially, they're outside of time, but the mockers and scoffers are here, and we should all be excited about that, because imagine if we didn't have mockers and scoffers. Well, imagine nobody was mocking or scoffing us. We're like, hey, nobody's fighting us. Are we really in the end times? Is Jesus really coming back? But nope, you got this guy. Definitely he's coming back. We got an idiot over here. We got a moron over here. They sometimes get into our comment section here. So thank you for doing your role to confirm that we are right on track and Jesus is coming back.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I just wanted to show one quick picture here. Have a look at this, and then we'll jump over to Pete. But this is what's going on in Toronto right now, with all the Muslims just blocking the streets, the parks, whatever. And people, you don't normally see this without somebody getting in trouble or saying, hey, you can't block the streets during the day, all this kind of stuff. But for some reason, this is okay to just block our towns. And it just seems like it's getting more and more. And I don't know if that doesn't interrupt anything. I don't know what else does, but it's just kind of, it feels weird right now with our prime minister. He's quiet as a ghost, not saying anything. Anyways, what are your thoughts there, Pete, about what Bob just said about the mockers, scoffers, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's getting a lot. The closer we get to the end, the more we're going to see. And I liken this back a few, I guess it was a year or two ago. I was on with Tyler, and we talked about the cone of confusion. And if you're flying a plane and you're on an instrument flight plan, and you get close to the NDB, the ground station receiver for like a VOR or whatever, your instrument, your HSI, which is a little instrument you're looking at, that's giving you your arrows pointing to the direction you're going. As you get over that station passage, over that VOR, I think it's going to spin, just go crazy, right? And I feel like the closer we get to the end, the more chaos and the more confusion that's going to just flood everything. So we live at this time where anything you ever wanted to look up there's a channel for it on YouTube. There's a page for it. Somebody's written a thesis on it or whatever, anything. I don't care what it is. And I feel like Satan, at the same exact time that we get to this point where everything's accessible, where you could really find out the truth on something, he's not shutting it down necessarily. He's flooding it with so many other things that you get lost. It's all white noise at this point. We're just like little spackles of crackling static in the background. We're not even making a wave really, because there's just so much other stuff going on. But I feel like prior to this time that we live in, I would even say prior to the 1990s, there was an expectation that we were living in the last days because of Israel. But the further you go back, the further removed that seems. And it wasn't until Israel became a nation again that we even had any concept of where we were on God's prophetic calendar. I mean, I know that people will like to take the pre-trib rapture and they'll trash it and they'll say it was invented in 1830, etc. The truth is that if you go through church history and you look through the major eras of time, the church was dealing with different things at different times. In the first century, they're fighting against the Judaizers. Second century, dealing with the Gnostics, second and third, and then so on and so forth. And it just so happens that we live that we've gone through pretty much all these other doctrines that we would call orthodoxy or orthodox doctrine, and it just comes at the same time that as we get close to the end, this is the thing that we come back to because it's never been settled in any since the first century. So it makes sense. There's more scoffers. I've certainly seen a uptick in scoffing. I heard it this morning in the pulpit. The pastor, the preacher was, I don't know, he's trying to make a point, but he ends up kind of making fun of the kingdom, we've got bigger things to worry about right now than the kingdom, like the kingdom when Christ comes back to set up his kingdom. And I thought, man, that guy is, he's got some brass cojones on or something. But I did just to piggyback off, I think Bob, what you're talking about. I went online and did a kind of a little bit of a research project, and I looked up the 8 major denominations. And I said, over the last 30 years, how many of these have mentioned the rapture, the second coming, or have eschatology as a theme across these 8 denominations? And I didn't say pro or against. There's no context in this in terms of, this just means that they have a sermon online and it has rapture or second coming or something somewhere in that sermon. So in the Southern Baptist, it's around 20 to 25%. This is, again, all the sermons that can go online for 30 years.
Yeah.
Methodist, 10 to 15%. Episcopalian, 5 to 10%. Calvary Chapel, 30+%. Lutheran, 10 to 15%. Catholics, 5 to 10%. Bible churches is 25 to 30%. And then the Churches of Christ are 10 to 15%. So overall, I just think across most of Christendom, you can see just in a general sense, this topic, even up until today, is not a pressing issue for the majority of the churches. And so it goes to reason, or stands to reason, that the average person, presumably somebody watching this channel or watching my channel or looking or searching on YouTube for material on the last days, is going to be your lay person. It's going to be just the person that either goes to church or is not going to church now because the churches don't teach anything, or they're just teaching the social justice gospel or whatever. But the clergy are the ones that you would be hard pressed to find any of them that will teach on this topic anymore and put it in any kind of context to where we are today. They might teach through Hosea, or they might teach through Daniel or something, but they're not going to try and apply that to today's. There's very, very few pastors these days that do that anymore. And you still got guys like David Jeremiah and John MacArthur and some others that are well known and nationwide, international, that will still teach on these subjects. But most churches outside of the Calvary chapels or the breakaways from the Calvary chapels and some really on fire Bible churches, or even maybe a handful of Southern Baptists might still teach on this, but for the most part, they've just moved away from this topic altogether. And so it's just a non-issue for them. And at the greatest time of need for discernment and for a watchfulness is also the most the biggest amount of churches today are asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I appreciate that. What's interesting about that is
sounds like someone's wash machine.
That's Gary, I think. We'll come to you in 1 second, Gary. We'll come to you in 1 second here. I just muted your mic for a quick second. But I appreciate going to our church. Not that our church is the best in the world, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. Our pastor a few months ago preached on the rapture, and I was just like, man, this feels like my channel. This is amazing. Love it. And I actually had my pastor on my channel as well. We had a great discussion. And we also are talking about possibly doing a live on a Sunday night at our church, a Rev 5 type of scenario where on the screen in the background, we have guest panelists in front of a live audience that comes out on a Sunday night talking about the end time. So imagine you guys all on the panel behind me while I have the mic on stage asking you guys tough questions that are coming directly from the audience. That's something that we're trying to figure out when we can do that. I'm hoping before November 5th. I'm hoping. But that's the fun part. So basically we're just trying to figure it out and see when it could fit with our schedule and do it on a Sunday night for like a couple of hours, have some worship and stuff. And then open it up to the panelists virtually and maybe have a round table on the stage as well of like 3 or 4 guests, plus, hopefully you guys on the live stream as well. And then you just ask the crowd, what are some of the questions that you have about the rapture, end times, anything, and we'll just talk about it. So I think that'll be fun. That's something I'm looking forward to organizing it down the road. But Gary, what are your thoughts about the scoffers?
Well, like it says in Matthew 24:37 that, but as the days of Noah were, so shall it also when the coming of the Son of Man will be. And I just think that you'll see history repeating itself through the different things that have happened in the Bible, as far as, God destroying everything or God destroying a city. There's always someone before it that's just scoffing and wreaking havoc. And I couldn't imagine what it was like to be Noah and his family. Mm-hmm. And I think we as watchmen, if you will, on YouTube, I think we got a little bit of an idea. But, these were people probably coming against them, standing in between them and the boat many days and just really getting in their face probably. But I just know that we're just living in a time where, like I think Brother Pete was saying about the layman, rising up. And it's one thing I like about Brother Tom over at Watchman River. Every episode, what's he say? I'm not a great teacher. I'm not even a preacher. I'm just a dude that loves Jesus. And there's a lot of dudes and dudettes that love Jesus that are getting what the Lord wants said right now. They're rightly dividing. They're looking in that scripture and they're presenting it. And God's whispering in their ears, maybe even yelling in their ears at times, like, this is what's happening. Warn my people. And it makes you wonder, as a watchman and a called pastor, are they two different people? Mm-hmm. But like Brother Pete was saying about different, especially some TV preachers we know, that they wear both hats, But it just makes you wonder. Like on this program last week, what were we talking about? We're on the brink. What do you think we're on the brink of? Mm-hmm. And I remember I sent you, Shane, from News. Fox News, and the title got me. I'm like, this man, hey Shane, when you got it, you got it. But it says America is on the brink of a recession, and I'm like, wow. And I'm like, did any of us? I'm sure we talked about the economy a little bit, mm-hmm. but anyway, or someone in the comments. But I believe God's whispering those things in our ears to get people to understand. And it is sad that you go to churches and they're more worried about what they could do to build a brand new wing or do this or do that, and a new fellowship hall, a new gymnasium, and they're not boots on the ground like one minister. And I call you a minister, Brother Bob, right here in front of us, that, your ministry is not necessarily about bricks and mortar, at least on this side of America. But Lord knows they're building in other countries and they need to. But it is something, if we were to do what some of those do overseas, like, for instance, you have a missionary come to your church and they're showing some pitiful building, cinder block building. They got a metal roof just barely hanging on. A little wind will probably knock it off, but they're thankful. They got dirt floor, but they're thankful. And there's little kids with tears in their eyes because they have their little red bowl getting it full of rice and a hot meal or a nice Bible that won't be just left at the church that day or left or ripped or left on their trail back home. This is something they're going to cherish. And Brother Bob, I think you get it. Because it's sad that we go to a church and there'll be people, I've been in churches, they'll leave because, they didn't choose the right color for the carpet. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. You get to sit in a cushy chair, be thankful. Let's bring that missionary back to show us some videos. It's like a thing I saw on Facebook, and I'll end with this, is, this guy's like, sometimes I just make my dog, I force him to sit down with me and we watch those dog commercials where the dogs are being mistreated just so he knows how good he's got it. And sometimes we need to be done like the dog and put in front and showed, hey, how good we've got it. But it's just a shame that we have to rely. And me and my wife were talking yesterday. We have to rely on the watchmen and women on YouTube, and we have been doing that. I think she said this month marks a year, and it was about a year ago that we turned on Robert Breaker just by what we think's accident, but I believe in not so random. You know what I mean? That God put that man in front of us, and I've seen a lot of things about end times, but when he got that timeline in elementary words, this, and this, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then we're coming across Uptime, and then Shane, and then Rick, and we come across all y'all that's helping to nourish us, because we were just kind of starving. And then all of a sudden October happens, and I'm like, my goodness, we are in the last days. So we've been kind of like, anytime me and her's got a little date night or errands to run, well, we'll do this Friday. Well, if we're still here, and we'll do this next month on our anniversary if we're still here. So everything's if we're still here, but we're busy looking up.
No, it's good. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's, we do that as well. I have a few friends that basically we say the Lord willing everywhere we go, because you don't know, like, honestly, from one day to the next when we're going to be here on earth. Like, you don't know that all of a sudden your life could be done. This is how I treat my life every single day. Like, this is my last 24 hours. So I just make sure that I'm right with the Lord every single day. This isn't out of fear. It's not out of fear at all. It's just, I love the Lord, and the more I dive into his word, the more I can love on other people, the more energy, the more strength I have to pour out onto other people, because time is short. It really is short. And I don't know when Jesus Christ is coming back, but I tell you what, I look forward to that day where I meet him face to face, and he's going to say, well done. That's what I look forward to. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Like, you let people know you're talking about it lots on your channel. You're sharing the gospel, helping the poor. You're doing everything that I could ask within your time frame, within your era that you live in. And I think really at the end of the day, that's our responsibility, is to occupy until he returns. That's it. You don't occupy thinking, looking over your shoulder, he's not coming back for at least 100 years. I got time. I think that's dangerous, to put God in a little box and say, you know what, you can't come back yet for at least 7 years starting today. You at least 7 years. I think it's a little bit cringy. So 2 Peter 3:8-9. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack in concerning his promises, some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. So now we're going to go in reverse order. Gary, Pete, Bob, and then Rick. So what are your thoughts about that there, Gary?
It's a good scripture there. I mean, he's not slack, concerning his promise, but we got to at least look at everything God's ever done. Everything he's done has been very strategic. I mean, there is, you look in the scriptures about how so many stories parallel each other and everything. I mean, the best writers could sit down and orchestrate what God's done, down to creation, down to things repeating themselves throughout the Bible and paralleling and everything. I mean, he's definitely not slack, and I'm glad he's not. He's not like we are, where we're just all about what we do, and we get behind on things, and we procrastinate. That's the word I'm looking for. Not meaning to give a Kamala Harris word salad there, but anyway, but I'm just glad that my God's strategic with what he's done, with what he does, and that his plan is perfect. And if he's waiting on somebody that needs him to, waiting on them to get saved, and they're the ones holding up the rapture, well, bring it on. There's somebody that needs to get saved. Otherwise, he'd already be here. And if that person was me, I hope the rest of the world would have waited on me. So that's what we need to be thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Pete, what's your thoughts? Nice mug, by the way, Gary.
There's a time implied in the parables, a long time between the master giving a task and the master returning. We see time not implied, but actually extended for Noah's generation. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,600 years that God tolerated that the antediluvian world and the corruption that they allowed to come about. Certainly God has, things aren't arbitrary to God, and like Gary's title is not so random. Like these aren't just arbitrary times in which we live, and these ages come and go. The Noahic flood happened exactly when God told him he was going to happen. The Israelites were going to be in bondage for exactly how long God told them they were going to be in bondage for. Christ came exactly when he was predicted to have come. Daniel was given 70 weeks of years, 490 years, 483, which ended at the cross. All happened to the day. And then, obviously that last week of years hasn't happened yet. There's nothing in history that would point to that. So we're still expecting that at some future point. But certainly that we've seen all of these other ages come and go. They all had a beginning and they all had an end. And so our church age that we live in is no different. And I think just to apply that Second Peter passage to the days of Noah, look at from the days of from Adam to the days of Noah when the flood came. It was 1,650 years, and look how much more gracious God has been in this last 2,000 years. We're a little over 2,000 years right now, so He's already being gracious and extending it 400 or 500 years at this point. So I do think that at some point this too will have to come to an end. So we're there. We're seeing everything, all the signs converging. We're seeing technology racing ahead, geopolitics. Everybody's pushing for a one world system, even if they're fighting against a one world system. They're enabling the technologies and these other things that will strengthen a one world system. And there's no escaping it. Every day that we're here on Earth, the world gets closer and closer to that world of Revelation 13. And so I feel like we might extend a little bit of time out here and there for revival, repentance, and all those sorts of things. But overall, the boat, we're on a boat going down a river, right? And God has confined us to the boundaries, so we can't go past the left or right boundaries of the shorelines. We're just heading down this river, and we might be able to go back and forth a little bit, left and right. We might be able to kind of slow it down or speed it up, but we're still heading down that river, still heading down that trajectory towards a waterfall that goes over the cliff into oblivion, into judgment and wrath and all that stuff. So we know that we'll be rescued prior to that. It's just, I don't think we can really tweak anything that God's already doing, only to say that He has foreseen everything, the end from the beginning. So none of this is a surprise to Him. So it's just, I feel like we're in that grace period right now. We're in that extended overtime, already past Noah's day. They got 1,650 years. We're close to 2,000, a little over 2,000 years right now. So I feel like we're already in that overtime period.
No, it's good. Thank you for that. Brother Bob, what are your thoughts?
Well, reiterating, now we're talking about 2 Peter 3:9, right? That the Lord is not slack concerning His promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to us. We're not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Okay, not slack. Some men count slackness. The rapture resurrection event in the end days was already set in eternity past. Okay, so God essentially has built this entire spiritual timeline that could be viewed in the spiritual realm. And this thing is solid. Imagine a long sidewalk, a long road, and all the buildings are built on it. Okay, it's a big long road, and it's so far you can't see down because it's so long. But the thing is, it's a long, solid road. All right, and roads are solid. They don't stretch, they don't slack, they don't bend, they don't flip around. They're solid. Okay, just because you can't see at the end of it, all right, doesn't mean that it's not there. Whatever's got going on down there. So when the Bible said the Lord does not count slackness concerning His promise, He's basically saying, "Hey, look, guys, the rapture is right where it's supposed to be. You guys are on the road. It's down there a few miles. All right, I haven't moved nothing. Everything is solid. You just haven't got there yet. It just looks like it's so far off, and it looks like I'm dilly-dallying around." Because you can't see it, and because you're looking so forward to seeing it, right? You think you're never going to get there, okay? But like I said, though, it's solid, all right. So when He says that the Lord is not slack concerning His promise, okay, I was kind of fumbling with my words here. As men count slackness, all right, it's solid. The day of the rapture is solid. Okay, think about it. All right. When was the creation? People say probably somewhere around 3970 BC, somewhere give or take. 4,000 years later, right around 30 AD. Okay, the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. 2,000 years after that, 2030 is basically His projected return. 2,000 years, one day like 1,000 years, 1,000 years like one day, just as Apostle Peter said in the same book here that we're talking about, right? It's solid. The whole road is solid. It's a big, long road, though. We can't see the whole thing. Only one person has a bird's eye view of this whole thing is God. Okay, so this whole thing is built. Now, God essentially created a physical model of it that we are on the road for right now. We are currently on the road of it right now. Okay, and we are in 2024. All right. Now, this road goes into eternity, all right? In fact, a lot of changes happens like 1,000 years from now, give or take, okay? But this road goes on for eternity, right? But we have the book called the Bible that tells us what's ahead of us on this road, all right? So everything is set right where it needs to be, all right? And I know people out there are getting really, he's just waiting for that last person to say yes. God's waiting on that one person. No, He's not. This whole thing is set and solid. Okay. We just need to be mature to be able to take the Bible and read it and see what it says, so that way we know what's coming down the road, right? And be able to discern, okay, maybe about this point, but maybe rapture resurrection seems to be about 1.5 miles. Something like that. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's there. It's not moving anywhere. It's not a moving target. It's there. We just haven't got there yet. It's like, Mom, are we there yet? Are we there yet? I just want to get there. Are we there yet? We're just excited about getting there. That's all.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's almost like I like the analogy that Pete used about the river. It feels like I've been on boats where, especially up the Clearwater, where there's actually rocks and there's rapids and all kinds of stuff, and you can actually take a boat, and some of these boats can go on water like maybe 4 inches, 6 inches. Some of the boats that we were on, maybe a little bit deeper than that. But the idea is you can actually get close to the rapids before the waterfall, and then you can just turn your jets on and you can actually escape. But if you do that too many times, eventually you're going to hit the rocks, and it's going to hit you can't stop it. That's my whole point. And it feels like that's what we're doing right now by going up and down a river. We can kind of slow our boat down a little bit, but if you turn off the engine, it's drifting over that waterfall. And I feel like that's where we're kind of hovering in that section. Either we're in the middle of an eye of a storm, which we actually just had a storm just a few nights ago, and all our phones went off. I had my daughter, her husband over, my wife, and all of a sudden our phones are getting the SOS, and all of a sudden imminent baseball-like hailstones coming. to our town in Cochrane, Alberta. Hailstone. I'm like, oh, that can't be good. And I'm thinking, we got a bunch of vehicles outside our garage. There's no way we can hide it. So I took a tarp out. I took some cushions off the back of my deck. And my wife's like, you're insane. That's crazy. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I had it all wrapped up all over the outside of the vehicle and trying to close the doors so that the tarp wouldn't blow off. And you could see the clouds literally coming. So I stood in the backyard. I took it all down because I was embarrassed. I took it all down, put everything back in the deck, and I was just watching and praying, going, Lord, like, just let the storm just kind of go on either side of our block kind of thing. A little bit selfish, I guess, but I'm just like, just let it come this way a little bit. Just split. I kid you not lying. My brother-in-law or my son-in-law witnessed it. We were looking and clouds were going this way and clouds were going this way on either side of us. And it was just going, and you could hear the rain, and it went past us. We got dumped on by buckets. Not one hailstone in Cochrane. Not one hailstone. East of us, my son's truck got destroyed by hail, and he filmed it. Big hailstones shattered the windshield, destroyed his truck, destroyed my son-in-law's house because he's at our house visiting, but his house, the siding got ripped off. And when my son was filming it, you could hear car alarms going off, and you could hear the hail coming, and it felt like Armageddon. It honestly did. It felt like that was the end of the world. If that's what the end of the world would sound like, that's what it felt like. Nuclear war, whatever, where everybody's car alarms were going off one at a time. And this was just a hailstorm, and it decimated the northeast of Calgary. And just like that, just came in a whirlwind, and then it was over in like an hour or so. Rick, what are your thoughts? I know I was
about the hailstorm or about
the
timing of God.
Yeah, hey, there's lots of it.
I'll combine both. I'll combine
for sure.
the both into a neat bow for you.
Thank you.
The hailstorm, when a storm's coming, you hear the thunder, the wind starts picking up. That's what we're starting to see now. And the hailstorm, when it hits, it's going to come all at one time. It's like the rapture. We're currently waiting for that to happen. And as for God being slack, God's timing is perfect. Okay? It's never off, even by a millisecond, nothing. His timing is perfect. End of story there. No one can debate that. Okay? And he never fails on anything. He does everything. He makes his decision for something to happen later on at that perfect time. There's slots that are all been filled with an event in it for that to happen at that exact time. God only knows when those events are going to take place. Okay? Somewhere the rapture is in now one of those slots. Okay? That's whatever that day and hour that's going to be. We know it's in a future time in an event that's ahead of us. Now, you can be the most expert prophecy figure it out all you can guy, but you'll never get it perfect. Now, we've narrowed it down possibly to the year we think it's going to come in 2024 based on past events and what we're seeing, like the storm, like the hailstorm that we see coming, like the Iranian war with Israel, hearing Russia getting involved, they're going to bomb Jerusalem. So that's a hint that God is throwing at us. He's saying, look, guys, I'll give you a hint. This might be. Now, he has delayed this war. I don't think God has ever delayed anything. He's always had the rapture set in a stone and the second coming of Christ in stone. People say, well, he's delaying the time. He's just changed his mind. God doesn't change his mind because if he changes his mind, it delays. That means he made a faulty decision at the beginning. God says, well, I think I shouldn't have set the date for that. I'll change my mind. I'll wait a little bit. That means he's made a mistake. And God never makes mistakes. So when you sit there and say, well, this is taking a long time, that's where all your scoffers come in. And so God promised us the rapture when these things start to begin to happen, then look up. But God didn't say, well, let me make sure I'm careful when I say this, that when we begin to look up, he didn't say the rapture's going to happen once it starts happening. He didn't put anything in the Bible. He said he would know that his return is near, even at the door.
Yeah.
There's the knock on the door we hear from some people are saying that they're hearing. I even heard a knock in my dream the other night. Okay? Weird things are going on. Now, whether it's spiritual forces that are doing this supernaturally, I don't know. I believe it might be because God can do anything and give us a small hint of his coming. We have all the hints in the world that he's coming. Okay? Now, being patient, let me get to that part. We are to be patient. We are not to push God in any way. Say, look, you need to come today, God. We're not to order him like that. You know, he'll come when he is good and ready. Now, he says, be patient. It's in the Bible. He said, be patient, people. In other words, I will come one day, regardless. Okay?
Yeah.
That is for him to worry about when he's coming. He already knows when he's coming back. Now, all we need to do is be on the watch for it, like the storm that's coming. You see it coming, you put a tarp over your car, or put it in the garage, whatever. Same thing. We're to warn people that it is coming, that this is getting ready to happen. And that is God, that the slack, the word, God has always been on his mark for everything he said in the Bible.
That's a good point. Thank you for that, Rick. And we're going to go backwards now to Bob, to Pete, to Gary. But I wanted to see if you guys can hear this. This is the video my son sent me. I won't show you the video because it might be hard to see, but let's just see if I can put it to the mic so you can hear the car alarms. No, that's not the one. Hang on here.
Is this the thunderstorm?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's it coming.
Oh, wow. I'm setting off alarms. Those are pretty good sized hails. Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty loud. Any cracked windshields?
Oh, yeah. All of them. All in that
Oh,
whole
man.
neighborhood. They were all, I don't know if they were baseball size, but my daughter showed me for sure golf ball size hailstones in her hand and sent it to me. And I was like, wow, this is just, it happened so fast. And I think that's the part that was kind of surprising as to how fast something like that would actually happen, because we're so used to being like, oh, nothing can happen, that quickly. Let me just see here. I want to see if I can see my daughter. I don't know if she shows it. No, I can't see it. But she sent me a picture of the stones, basically like golf stones, golf balls. So I want to go back now around, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of have final thoughts, and take your time, whatever, but just final thoughts about what we're talking about. I think what I'm going to probably do during the week as well, I'm going to start talking a little bit more about CERN, and I've been thinking about Donald Trump's assassination attempt, and this is just me going outside the box. I'm going to go to Crazy Town just for a bit, and then I'll come back, and then you guys can carry on with sanity. But have you ever seen the movie Tenet? Has anybody just raise your hand if you've seen the movie Tenet by Christopher Nolan?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone? Pete, have you seen Tenet? Christopher Nolan, basically where armies are battling each other while one army's going forward in time, the other army's going backward in time at the same time. Have you ever seen that science fiction?
No.
Wow. What kind of time frame are you guys in?
Yeah, it's been a while though. I haven't.
So
No,
anyway,
I've seen it. I saw it when it came out. It's like 2 years ago.
yeah, it fries your brain. But here's the interesting thing with the assassination attempt with Trump. I caught on video from various angles Secret Service men running backwards. And it's not your normal where you're just kind of going like this, and you know how you back up and you're kind of looking over so that you don't trip. They were looking forward with their gun in their hand and walking backwards as fast as it almost looked like somebody was rewinding the tape, and it almost looked like the sound was being rewound, but the people in the crowd were moving forward, and I'm like, this just seems so strange. If you're trying to write a science fiction movie or something, that's not how people run back. Like, it looked like you're actually watching the film being wound backwards. That's not how people walk backwards. It's not. It's weird. And so I started looking at other angles, and I'm like, is it just me or whatever? Same thing. One guy running this way, and then another guy running forward after he sees the shooter on the roof. He gets dropped, runs away out into a field, and then comes back for his machine gun, and then goes back to. I'm like, this is like they're playing with us. It feels like they're just messing around with us, trying to distract us, because nothing is adding up ever. But I would just want to get your final thoughts. You can talk about the Trump assassination, or you can talk about what we talked about here and stick with the topic. But we're going to go to Bob, then we'll go to Pete, and then Gary, and then we'll go Rick, and then I'll wrap it up with a nice little bow. So, Bob, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, since you're talking about Trump there, another gauge that we're looking at, we are on the brink of big change happening here in this country, is once again what's coming up November 5th and everything that's going on with that right now. Basically, take a look around the country right now. All right. Look at all the blue cities. Look at all the chaos. All right. Especially in Chicago. All right. They essentially, all your gangs have been replaced by Venezuelan gangs now. All right. So they're about to have a huge clashing war there. And all these people are all here now. All right. About 50 million illegals are in this country now, and they're passing the laws now for them to be able to, one, carry a gun without any type of permit or nothing. One, two, they're going to allow them to vote. All right, one way or another, they're going to be able to vote in these swing areas. All right, so I think this election coming up, all right, can it be possible? And I'm entertaining the idea is you think it's going to be Trump, and then you're going to have Kamala go right in there, and no one's going to vote for her, but she'll win by a bigger landslide than Biden.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what they need to essentially kick off this war. Imagine them doing that, which makes me think, will they allow a nuclear war to happen before that happens? Because I know a nuclear war would be them flipping the game table. All right. But if they can get this election to go through, and especially do it where they could just stick her in, even though nobody voted for her, and they'll just do what they did last time, that will set the stage to tick everybody off. All right. Mm-hmm. And since they imported 50 million illegals, most of them all military-age men, all right, they essentially, all the globalists went to all the globalist nations and say, hey, empty out your jail cells. We'll take them all. In fact, we'll pay to ship them all here for you. It won't even cost you a dime. Okay. Yep. Send us all your bad people, all your criminals, because we want chaos here. All right. Yep. Things would be good for you. Remember you talking about that, Shane, that one country you're talking about? It was great.
El Salvador.
Everybody's locked up. But now El Salvador sent us all their bad people. So now all these countries got rid of all their bad people. They're like, man, this is great. But not for us, because now they're all here, conveniently located here, because the globalists want chaos here. And they are positioned here now for this upcoming election season, because essentially what they're going to do is they brought them all in. They paid for them all to come in. And now all the borders of countries are shutting down the borders. Look, the Democrats, hey, let's finish building this wall. Let's secure the borders, make ourselves look good for the elections. The reason why they want to secure the borders is because they want to create this Thunderdome here. Okay, nobody gets out. Everybody stays in. And once they got them all in here, they're going to take care of them for a little while. Here's some money. Here's some stuff. And once everything's sealed, they'll take the money out from underneath them, all right, and say, hey, go pound on that person's door over there and try to take their food, okay? Set everybody against each other. And then to add insult to injury, they're going to shut down the grid, okay? So that really makes it going. They said they're going to kick over the beehive.
Yep.
Get everything set up and kick over the beehive. So that is what we are in the midst of right now. Okay, this is why the globalists are getting all their assets out of this country, their families. Everybody's abandoning this country that can do it, that knows better. They know that's coming. And do you think they're going to allow Trump just to get in and then just undo everything that they wanted to do and everything that they done to bring in World War III. No, the New World Order needs America gone off the map in order to execute the New World Order during the tribulation. Which all this happening right now just goes to show you once again that the tribulation is about to start this upcoming fall, because it also aligns perfectly with our elections. The whole thing between now and the end of the year, it's right there. If you can't see it, you have to have absolute blinders on right now.
Yeah.
We cannot survive this.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rapture's right around the corner here somewhere.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing. One thing I want to add, this is something that I've never had happen to me for a long time. Maybe you guys are aware of this, but my views have gone up quite a bit, especially on the Sunday nights. Like I can see on the stats, my views are climbing. I just lost 80 subscribers. 80. I've never had that in 2.5 years. I've never lost, sometimes you lose one, you gain 5, that kind of thing. 80 subscribers gone on my channel. So what I would suggest is to my audience that is watching this, double check your account just to make sure that you're still subscribed, because I know what has been happening to my channel is there will be people that will email me and say, Shane, I've been trying to subscribe to your channel 2 or 3 times and they keep unsubscribing me. So if you could be so kind at the end of this, when you're done, just randomly take a little look, take a peek, email me, whatever, let me know if this is happening to you. Because again, as soon as you talk about something like this, they're going to try and squash channels like this when you just start talking about what's coming down the pipes and everything. And again, these are not people unsubscribing because they don't like what we're saying. This is YouTube actually unsubscribing people with their little algorithms and whatever is going on. And it's actually not fair that they do that kind of thing, because people subscribe, they click on the bell because they want to watch the content. And then YouTube interferes and says, no, I'm going to take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And maybe you'll stop talking about this because you'll leave making videos on your channel. So in fact, it could be the opposite, where I will now make more videos about this topic.
Shane, are you monetized?
Yes, I am as well.
Don't monetize your channel. Don't be a partner. Don't monetize it. If you do, make sure if you're not monetized, they pretty much leave you alone.
Okay, interesting.
It's harder. The algorithm doesn't pay attention to you as much.
Yeah,
that's why I've never been monetized.
Yeah, it feels like that ever since monetized it, I'm just getting hammered and squashed. And it's like, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So has anyone else had that happen to them?
Yeah. Me. I lose 1,000 every month.
It's horrible.
I take.
And you're not monetized. Oh, really?
And I'm also a pretty big channel now, so they have to look at me now. And I've gotten strikes, and so I kind of brought attention upon myself. Right. So they do that to me now, even though I'm not monetized. But I lose about. I gain 500. They delete 500. I gain 500, and they delete 500. I just sit and watch it. I take screenshots of it, and it just goes up and down, up and down. It's like eventually I made it over 140,000, but it just kept on doing this 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
It's silly, man. Because my channel was going up like. I think over a year ago, there was one video I had like 80,000 views on it. 80,000. And I'm like, why am I just hovering at 6,000? And it just goes up and down. And it's like, I'm talking about the same thing as I did when I first started my channel, and it just ramped up, and all of a sudden it's just like this. It's crazy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, just a little digression there. Pete, what's your thoughts on this crazy world?
I just feel like the kind of the 4 big things for me are that one is that according to, if we look at the big picture of the Bible, there was 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham, 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus' first coming, and now we're coming up on that 2,000th anniversary of his death, burial, and resurrection, depending on the year you you hold to that he was crucified. I hold to the year 33. So that would be what is it, 9 years away from now, I think. We're coming up on that anniversary, and I just have a hard time seeing that date come and go and nothing happening. So, and then second part is that obviously Satan knows the Bible. He probably has a decent understanding of where we are in time, especially since Israel is back in her land, and he failed to finish the job with the Third Reich and the Nazis and the Holocaust, and now this has emboldened them as a people to say never again. And they've thrived and succeeded over the last 7 years or so. And so I feel like we're coming to a head now with that as well. They've tried the land for peace for 40 years. They tried, everything they've tried has not worked. So I think they're getting fed up right now. And I think whatever comes out of all of this, we have Tish B'Av tomorrow and Tuesday. Whatever comes out of these conflicts with Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran and the Houthis and etc., it is going to be stage setting. I think they'll be victorious here, but I think it'll also set the stage for Ezekiel 38, 39 to come. And that will be what I would call is not just going to be Turkey, Russia, and Iran and the other nations that mentioned there, but it's going to be drawing military-aged Muslim males from all over the world are going to flock to go fight in Israel, just like they flocked to Afghanistan and Iraq when during the war on terror there. We had people coming from all over. Were coming to go fight the Americans in these countries. I think when the call goes up for them to march on Israel, one, I don't think the United States is either not in the position to help because we have a Harris Waltz administration and they become vehemently anti-Israel, or on the other side, the rapture happens and the U.S. is collapsing or is collapsed and is in no position to help them anyways. So there's that. And I feel like we're either way, either direction we go past November, I feel like it's either going to be the rapture or the U.S. is going to be thrown into some type of dystopian, draconian system where the government refuses to lift a finger to help Israel. But with that said, that is going to be a clarion call for all the Muslims to come out of Europe, all the Muslims to come out of all these different places and go march on Israel like a reverse crusade, instead of the Christians going to the Holy Lands to liberate it. Now the Muslims going to march on the Holy Lands and trying to free it from the Jewish people. And so I feel like that's where we are right now. And we know that Gog and Magog, that battle, at the end of that, what happens is Islam as a force in the world is going to be done forever. It's going to be neutered. It's going to have its manhood cut off. And at that point, that is where the Antichrist and whatever that subsequent world global religion, Mystery Babylon, whatever that comes out to be, that's how they're going to be able to do that. Because on one hand, the Christians are gone, the evangelical or the born again Christians are all gone, and then the militant Muslims are all wiped out in a battle. What's left is you've got a mishmash of different religions that aren't necessarily militant in any way, shape, or form, and they're willing to acquiesce to whatever the cultural tide, whichever way that's going to flow. They're willing to bend in that direction. They already do it now, and so at that we've got that all lining up right now like we've never had it before, and just the rest of the convergence. We see the convergence on every category and every spectrum is all moving in one direction towards global surveillance, global currency, global religion, global communications. Everything is being synced in together. And so at just the right crisis, I feel like that's what's going to tie in and be able to be captured by this man, this Antichrist that comes up, and be able to use that and to ride that in. So,
right. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's just everything, like you said, is being shaped right now. It's being shaped, and it's happening quickly. It's happening quickly. You couldn't predict this 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Gary, what are your final thoughts? And then we'll go to Rick.
Well, I mean, when we talk about end time events and the way the world is, and heck, if you just turn on the news for a few hours in a day and watch just a few seconds, even, I mean, all of that in your mind, I mean, it can really bring you down to a point. Not the blessed hope part of the rapture, but just hearing about, well, this is going to happen, this bad thing's going to happen, this thing, and you just, because the world as you know it's about to be totally, different, and because we're so earthly minded, we're no heavenly good. How's that for a reverse? We get so caught up in our day to day that there is a tomorrow, and we're having to work for tomorrow, to where the average person, they need to stop and think about what Jesus said, and that is in John 16:33. He basically said, about that we might have peace. And he says that in the world that you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Mm-hmm. And no matter what is in the news, no matter who's getting elected, who's in the lead in the polls, bottom line is, who are we going to serve tomorrow? I'm not serving the red or the blue. I'm serving the Christ, and if he's over me, it doesn't matter what's going to happen. And I'll even throw this out there. God's given me vision on different things when it comes to media and stuff, and church growth and helping churches. Mm-hmm. When we were under Obama, the church was going great. Everybody was in turmoil because of the economy and everything. So people were flocking to the church.
Yeah.
Under Trump, until before the 2020. Yeah. Prior to that, growth was horrible. The growth was horrible, and then after, it's like during and around the time of Trump, you couldn't get people to go to church, and then now it's either we're in a double whammy. It's like the world's getting horrible. People are starting to think about God again, wanting to come back to the church. But then some people are still fearful because of all the stuff that went on during 2020. So it's a real mix right now. It's really weird. And mm-hmm. for someone to call me need media help for their church, I'm just like, I don't know what to do to help you. Mm-hmm. Go online, forget bricks and mortar, put your efforts right here, because, it's instant, mm-hmm. Either people are blessed or they're telling you to kiss your foot. And it's a whole lot easier, I think. And that's where God's put me, from helping brick and mortar churches with media, trying to get butts in the seats, to let's just get some people on their way to heaven, and do it right where they're at in their surroundings. I'm on their turf when they turn it on. Yeah. And that's a special place to be. And the ones that give me the worst is of course the Christian people. Mm. I can deal with people outside church all day long, but it's like the idiots you just want to call, and they're more worried about winning an argument than they are winning people. And I just got my comments set to where, hey, I got to approve it before it's seen. Some people don't like that, but a lot of watchmen that I've watched the past week are getting so fed up with not the lost people, it's the Christians. Going in here on the chats, and even tonight, there's been some back and forth. I'm like, we're giving what we think the Lord's given us, what we believe that we've, interpret the Word of God. We're sharing our thoughts. Everyone's free to their opinion. I'm not forcing it down your throat. Here it is. Take it or leave it, and God bless you. There's no sense of getting evil in the comments. But anyway, I'm all over the place. But hey, I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to be alive. God's given me another day to serve Him, and to be online, blessing people best as I can. So, amen.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Always appreciate your heart perspective. Rick, what are your final thoughts?
God is wrapping up history right now. Everything's coming to a close. And I mean, as our time being here is about to expire at any moment. And I feel it every day. I feel like something's getting ready to happen to my body. Rather, I'm going to die from something or the rapture. I'm leaning towards more the rapture, of course. Okay. I'd love to live to see that event as it takes the sting out of death. It's painless. And my body, when God destroys this vessel that I've been in all these years, that's it. We're getting a whole upgrade makeover in a millisecond. And, people say, well, that's fairy tales. That's a book of fantasies. They say the Bible is. Those people they say the book is all lies. That's just a thing they invented for a crutch for death to help them deal with the fact that they're going to die someday and just go 6 feet under the ground.
Yep.
Of course, they're delusional. Their minds have been warped by Satan, and that whole world is going down into hell in a handbasket with that. I don't want to go down in that sinking ship.
Yep.
So we are strong soldiers for Christ. We're boots on the ground. We're like the military. We're fighting every day for people. We're fighting for you to get you saved. We're on here all hitting the ground hard every week, trying to bring you the good news that Jesus Christ is about to come for his church. Okay?
Yeah.
And we're not to be, slacking off saying, hey, we got time. We got all this time in the world. No, we don't, folks. It is so quickly it can happen before we're finished here. I would love to see it happen while we're live on air. Because then people can say, well, they all disappeared, every single one of those guys. Oh, duh, because we're all believers in Christ. Watchmen. Okay? So, right now it's time to get on the ball, get going, get it for Christ, because God's not gonna wait, he's not gonna delay, because he's already had his mind made up way before the foundation of the earth when the rapture was coming. Believe it or not, that is true. He had it already in stone before he even formed the earth. That's crazy to think about it, but God's got everything from behind him to the present to the front of him, like infinite. He sees infinite time in front of him. I don't know how he does it, but that's something we'll never know when we get there, maybe. But he's wrapping up history, and we see it coming to a close with all the signs that are coming at us pretty quickly now, I may say, and the birth pains. And people say that, oh, this has always been happening. Well, no, it's always been happening, but not at the speed and complexity that it's been going. It's now coming at us back to back, like that. When it starts doing that, it's like a tachometer. It's revved up. We are revved up, just like the name of the show. It's Rev 5. This is revving up down to the close. It's coming down to a close that he's getting ready to pull his church. And I'll close with this. What are you going to do? Is today your day to get saved, or do you want to wait? Are you comfortable in this world and you're not ready to go yet? There's Christians that say, look, we don't want to leave yet. I'm comfortable with my life here. Oh, really? Well, no, you're not. You don't really. You're kidding yourself, because this world's not comfortable right now. There's too much stuff going on. It's bad news every time we flip it on. Okay, and America's got a big old X drawn over it by the lunar eclipse, or by the solar eclipse. America's gone, folks. It's gonna go. Okay, it's not coming back. Trump's not gonna save it. If we get Kamala in there, God only knows what that kind of disaster that's going to create. Okay, poor decision making, can get us into a bigger, faster nuclear war can get here. I'll close with this. Today is the day of salvation. Find Jesus into your heart now, because it may be too late in the next 10 minutes. You never know.
Yep. No, that's good. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that, Rick. Thank you, everyone, for being on here tonight. Thanks to the audience for being here. And just like what Rick said, don't take this for granted, because what we are speaking, if you hear it, if your speakers are on, you're watching TV, and you hear this channel, you are now held accountable by what you hear. So if we're telling you that Jesus Christ is the only way for salvation, this is how we get justified by what God the Father, basically God the Father justifies us because of what Jesus Christ did on the cross. That's the only way. And because of that, we're not being judged as the body of Christ. We're his flesh, we're his bones, and he's coming back one day to get his church. And this is what, once you hear this, you can't go before the great white throne judgment and say, I didn't know, I didn't hear it. Because you'll probably get a recording playing back or a transcript that says, were you here at 4:37 p.m. Eastern Standard, Mountain Standard Time on August 11th? Was that you watching this channel? See right here, you're watching it. Remember when the Black Swan said, the only way of salvation is through my son, Jesus Christ. This is God the Father saying it. Like, this is it. That's the only way. There's no other way. His name is above all names. He is the King of Israel. He is the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. You're not, now you're held accountable by that. This is what we're saying. We're watching every single day. We're letting you know this is what's coming down the pipes. Get ready for the Lord. He's going to take his church. And if you miss it, you can't look to any one of us and say, why didn't you tell us that Jesus Christ was coming? Why didn't you tell us? So that's on you. That's up to you to make that decision. I can't force you. That's up to you to either listen to the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And if you have any questions or whatsoever, if you want to do a one-on-one with me and you're like, I'm not sure how to be saved or anything like that, just email me blackswandiary2022@gmail.com. I'll jump on a Zoom call, one-on-one, just me and you. Doesn't cost you anything but your time. I'll answer any of your questions. So email me. All right. So thanks again, guys. Just stick around in the background. And I'm just going to end the stream. Thanks again for everyone watching. Really appreciate you guys. Appreciate the panelists being on here. And I will see you guys in another video. Bye for now.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fueled this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.